Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaoatman.com. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness. I am so delighted you're here with us today. And today I'm super excited about our guest because we have with us today Holli and Jeanna from LOA Uncorked. It's a podcast about everything having to do with manifesting, spirituality, conscious creation, and everything in between. And so I am super happy that they are here today to share their knowledge with us. We're going to be talking about manifesting. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And I want to thank you, Holli and Jeanna, for being here as well.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having us on Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're excited to be here this morning.
Yes, I'm excited you guys are here too, because we have a lot in common. Your podcast and my podcast have pretty similar topics. So I can't wait to get your perspective on different things and also just learn a little bit more about your podcast, because when you have a podcast, it is not easy. People don't understand the struggle sometimes, do they?
No, there's no forewarning either. When you're setting one up, there should be like a warning label or something. Right. Somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a fun conversation. But before I get started talking about spirituality and manifesting and all of those really fun topics, tell us a little bit about your journey, because I know you guys work together, I think, in the corporate world, and then you have the story of how you came together, and then you created this podcast. So I would love to hear how that all came about.
Okay, Jeanna, I'll start.
Okay.
I know. Well, about 18 years ago, Jeanna hired me. We have no idea why. And we've been working in the corporate world up until about the end of last year. And I ended up saying, it's time to go. I'm part of the Great Resignation, and said, I've done everything I can here. It's time to move on. And so, but Jeanna and I, we have been good friends from the very beginning. And we started playing with the universe as we're going into corporate meetings and corporate initiatives. And what we felt was, just like life, you spend so much time at your job. Why not try to make it as fun as possible and play with the universe? And so it kind of started way back then. And I was the CFO. So I started my career as an accountant. I decided to become an accountant because I felt like I didn't have any talent, which is really interesting. So that was my background, and went to school, first generation college graduate. And, I don't know. And then when Jeanna and I met, it took quite a few years, and I'll let Jeanna tell that story, quite a few years until the idea of the podcast came up. But we were always playing with the principles of the universe while we were there. We felt it was like a great time for ourselves to grow and then have fun with the universe. Go ahead, Jeanna.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, I think back on, I did hire Holli, and she complains about that process on a regular basis. We work for an employee-owned organization, which really did love to interview just to make sure the fit was really good. And so she had, I think, 6 interviews, and she still to this day complains often about the rigor of that process. But we began working together probably after a couple of years where we really started partnering up on initiatives. And then there were some changes in the organization that brought both Holli and I forward. I'm the director of HR. And so we're both on the corporate side of our business. And, there were some initiatives that were really set forward to make the organization better and more profitable, which both Holli and I are very wired to do and very competitive. And I could just kind of see across the room that, she and I were like feeling the same way and really committed to this work. And so we just started partnering together in the workplace and got to know each other outside of the workplace. We have children about the same age and about the same spot in life. And just instantly had that connection that you just almost can't explain. It always felt that way about Holli, like a sister. And then, like Holli said, I think Holli really was I call her the brains of the operation for the podcast, but she really was the instigator of this kind of drive to develop self, right? To continue to grow. And she, we would drive to our corporate meetings together. And because of traffic in Seattle, it was, 3-ish hours each way kind of thing. And so we would have lots of time to chat and talk about not only work, but also kind of where we're at in life and what's important to us. And, how do we continue to grow and evolve? And so we were able to practice both personally, but also professionally. And what we could see in the workplace was just a great deal of exceptional results and real changes in the outcomes when you set intentions and you go in collected and centered in yourself and with all your tools in your toolkit, and just being mindful at work, being not just going to the meeting and, sitting down and going through and getting through the agenda, but really being intentional about the time you're there and what you want to accomplish in the room. And so we kept practicing, and we talk about on the drive home and how'd that go. And, she'd give me feedback. I'd give her some feedback, but most of the feedback came to me. And it was really fun because I grew up in a house where metaphysics was a big part of my childhood. My dad was very into, feng shui and I Ching and, Eastern philosophies, and he passed in 2009, and I just really had lost it. I had lost that love, interest, understanding, and Holli really brought it back for me, both personally, but also how to utilize that in the workplace. And then we were, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, Holli, we were in New York visiting Holli's niece. We were there for a work trip, but we were having dinner with Holli's niece, and we were espousing on something in a very animated sort of LOA sort of way. And she said, you guys should do a podcast. And we're like, what? Neither one of us had ever listened to a podcast. In fact, when Holli came and said, we need to do a podcast about 4.5 years ago with crazy eyes in the morning, it was one of those drives to Seattle. Her eyes were crazy. And she's like, I need to do a podcast. You need to do it with me. We have to do one. I'm like, okay. I still had not listened to a podcast. So the space was new to us, but we really were looking for a place where we could, bring this relationship that we had to maybe others that maybe don't have that same benefit, and really use it as a platform to get people thinking about, simple routines, practices, processes, and storytelling that really showcases the way the universe helps you co-create in everyday life. It's Holli said it's often not the billboards that we're going to get from the universe. It's the little breadcrumbs and the little things along the way that get you there, and making sure to be paying attention to those and celebrating those. So that's been the foundation of the podcast. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Holli, on that.
No, that sounds great.
So you started this podcast, and what are some of your more favorite topics that you've covered on your podcast?
Well, I feel like our podcast is rooted around making conscious creation a lifestyle. It's really, we think everybody should have intention when they get up in the morning, whatever that is for them, and set it throughout the day and not sleepwalk through life. And so I feel like all of those topics surrounding that, even if it's little hacks that we can do daily that people can incorporate to make their lives better and more joyful, that's like my favorite topics. What about you, Jeanna?
Yeah. I think they're all unique in their own way. I think, we really wanted to leverage the podcast as a platform just to introduce people to concepts and ideas that maybe they haven't explored. And, really, if it sounds like something you want to invest some more time in or interest, we give, links to things for people to go and do some more personal learning. But, for me, honestly, the biggest learning for me over the last, 3-ish years has been about energy and energy management. And I think, just good energetic hygiene and all the practices around, where you spend your time, who you spend your time with, How do you ensure that the energy you're carrying around is yours? And if it's not, how do you, offload that and set it free? And how do you then be intentional with your own energy when you do come into, whether it's meetings or an important conversation with a dear friend, or just making sure that we're always, again, back to not sleepwalking, the mindfulness of the way in which you enter a room and the way you impact the room with your energy is super.
That's
super
so important, especially in today's day and age with all of the just hot topics going on and the way that the world, people are so fearful of everything going on. It's really important to make sure that it's all your energy and not other people's, because I think that we often pick up on other things just from going throughout our day. And so I think clearing your energy every so often is a really, really good idea, especially today.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the topics that I know you guys like to talk about, and I'm really interested in this too, because I know we have a lot of people out there listening. I think the universe is calling people in major ways to step up and to go after their dreams and to pursue different things, whether they want to write a book or start a podcast or just get a new job or start their own business. And a lot of people start off with this idea planted in their head that I want to start my own business, I want to write a book, I want to do this. So they go after their dreams and then they hit a wall and they don't see success or they don't see their dream coming to fruition. So it's almost like they see these blockages coming in. How do you advise people when they want to go after their dreams and they're just not seeing it manifest? I know you guys like to talk about how to get through those blockages or get past those blockages. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I love that question because it's complex, right? I think once you hit one of your dreams, then you're off to manifesting another. And some dreams are harder to manifest than others. I always look to astrology, and sometimes it's written in your chart that some people may struggle more with manifesting money than with manifesting their purpose. My son came in with purpose. He knew he was going to be a musician, and he knew. And I came into this world going, okay, what should I be? What's my purpose? And so I feel like everybody kind of walks their own path to start with. But when you're looking at manifesting, I feel like there's a few things that we need to take the pressure off ourselves to manifest our dreams now. I mean, time and space is kind of is tricky on manifesting your dreams. And so one of the things is I think life is like a ballroom dance. And so I believe that we have to look daily at what signs are we getting. Because oftentimes we think we want one thing and we start a path. There's never a straight line or trajectory to that path. And so you look like you're not going in the direction of your dreams, but you really are. And I think people sort of give up, or they don't acknowledge it, or they don't celebrate it. And, this twist and turn to their ultimate, I'm going to call it their ultimate true north. We always talk about go towards joy, your true north, because your dreams really is about being in joy. Mm-hmm. And so whatever that dream is, it's going to bring you an essence of joy. And so our true north is not a straight line. So what Jeanna and I always say is that start with an intention and then watch the signs of the universe. I think that's really important because the universe will be giving you signs all the time about either you're heading in the right direction, or if you hit obstacles, that is an invitation to question deeper and look within more. And once you do that, you're probably on this kind of curvy, windy road to your true north. And I think sometimes that changes for people, that I thought I wanted this, but you know what, I really don't want that. And so when we talk about manifesting, we're always trying to manifest the feeling. When I go on a trip, I always write down and try to manifest my dream trip, right? What does that look like? But it's not like, the look of it. It's the feeling I feel when I'm in that trip. And so I will write down everything before Jeanna and I go and travel or whatever, every feeling down to feeling good about getting on the airplane on time. I will put some of those things, some of those human markers on there, on time, that the bags show up, this is my dream, that my bag isn't gone and I get there and I have nothing, And so I make sure I'm manifesting feelings though in there. And Jeanna knows this, oftentimes I write things down and to play with the universe, because I believe, let's not be so serious, because when we're looking for our dreams, I'm just talking about a trip right now, but we get super serious, and when you're serious and really, there's so many feelings of resistance to receiving because you're so anxious about it, that the trip I'm not anxious about. I can, it's an easy one to show. So we play with the universe. So Jeanna and I were going on a trip and I thought, let me just put in a clown, that I want to see a clown, because we don't like clowns. It's a badassery principle. We have 10 badassery principles. Clowns are just, shame is just clown shit. Okay. And so we don't.
And clowns are scary.
Yeah. We're sorry, clowns. We don't like you.
We don't like them.
We think you should be gone. But I put one in there just as okay, let's see the feeling funny of seeing a clown. And I didn't tell her. I put it in there because I thought, well, let's just see if we can manifest a clown on this trip. And at the end, when we're coming back, we sat down and I said, gosh, I didn't see a clown. I wanted to physically see a clown walk in. We didn't, but we had a fish tank that we were looking for a clownfish. We were and there was some language around a clown that I had forgotten about. And she reminded me.
Yeah.
And so this simple little example is sometimes you need to think about what you're receiving. So I thought I hadn't received the clown.
Yeah.
Jeanna was like, when I had the big reveal, okay, and I could check everything off the list as far as feelings go, said, yeah, I think we did get the clown. So sometimes the universe is subtle. So I'm going to hand that over to you, Jeanna, because I know that we could probably talk about this for hours, but
yeah, we really could. And I think it's important to talk about quite a bit, because what Holli said about, with your question, Melissa, if somebody's trying to manifest something different, like a dream, whether it's a job or a new place to live, I think of those as being kind of the big things in life, a new love, I think those things, like Holli said, those are definitely harder to manifest. And I think often and I say we, because I do it myself, and I've really been reformed in this area, because it's less about the what it is and more about, like Holli said, the feeling, what would that allow me, what would be the characteristics of what that new state would allow me to do? Is it more flexibility? Is it more sun where I live? Is it someone who shares, XYZ appreciation and love with, that could be my partner? What are the things? And then maybe less so about the type of house, or the exact city you want to live in, or the makeup of the dream man or woman, or all of those things. I think we get really stuck on those things. And when Holli said, the windy road of the universe, it's going to deliver what you're asking for. It just often is not exactly what you would have said. One of my favorite stories about Holli's trip intentions, which they are epic. And I'm telling you, every single time, with the exception of the clown, although I would say the clown was there, they are prominent all of her goals are hit prominently in the trip. It's just the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm a believer after being a part of her intention setting for amazing trips. But one of them, we were going to Miami for a work trip, and she had put on there, fun in the sun, great people, good food, just great stuff. And then, easygoing, no real schedule, all kind of the good things. And then she put in there flowers. I want flowers. And I was like, flowers? We were at this bougie hotel, the Mandarin Oriental. It was a beautiful hotel. We were there for what, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. And she put flowers. I'm like, whoa. And like every day she'd say something about the flowers. I still don't have my flowers. Wonder when my flowers are coming. So it was the night before we had a very early flight the next day. We had dinner and we're visiting at the bar for a little bit before we went upstairs. And I had asked for 2 waters to go upstairs because we were gonna be heading to bed and stuff. And he goes, sure. And it took a while to bring the waters out. And they were the bartenders we had seen for the last couple of days, and brought out 2 plastic cups with a little lid on them and straw and a flower in each of the top of like a fresh flower in each of the top of the water glasses. And, we're on the elevator going upstairs and about ready to part ways. And Holly goes, wait a minute. We got I'm just in time, and I'm sure not the flowers she was expecting, but it was flowers nonetheless. So it's just little things like that. If you're not looking, you're going to miss that flower. You're going to think that's just what they do. I'm confident they do not do that on all their water.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, well, that is really cool, and I love that. But I want to go back and piggyback on something that you said, because you talked about not getting specific with the universe. And I talk about that all the time with people. Like, if you're asking for a romantic partner, don't feel like he's got to be blonde with blue-eyed, getting too detailed, because I feel like that limits the universe, and the universe is unlimited. Like, the universe can bring you something you never even knew you wanted in something. And so I know you guys were talking about that. So could you mention that more a little bit about not being so close-minded or putting too many details into something?
Yeah. Holly, would you grab that? Because you always are so very good at this and coach me often. So coach you.
Well, thank you, Jeanna. But I do think that we have a tendency to want to control what we think we want. And the universe always delights in something better. Always. I've always been surprised about what the better thing is. And so you're right, Melissa, you limit the universe when you do every detail. That doesn't mean that you can't put the details on there. I feel like if that makes you feel good, there's so many blogs and people have written and talked about, like, make your list of your man or woman or your perfect partner, right? And, there's nothing wrong with that, but I would say add feelings to it and then be open to that package looking a little differently. It's like the clown. I mean, it's a silly story, but I was like, oh, geez, the clown didn't come. And Jeanna's like, yeah, it did. It just came in a way. I mean, we didn't really want to see a clown. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I was playing. So the universe was playing back. And so I feel like what we do is we don't acknowledge then that something happened. That's the other thing. So I think the more we acknowledge, the more we invite in more universal synchronicities. And so I feel like that's a big part of it as well. But when you're clinging to your new love or a new job, it doesn't allow the universe to really, you're in a state of lack and desperation. And that means that your vibration is, maybe not the match for what you want to feel moving forward. So I feel like you have to match that feeling to move yourself forward as well. So I think if there are some people that want to write details and then say this or something better, I mean, maybe that actually, and then put the feelings on there, because that's really what I think moves us in the way towards our dreams. And then that route becomes shorter. I think that route to get to our joy and our true north becomes a little shorter. Jeanna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. I'm just because I really think, and this has been, like I said, my dad was pretty metaphysical when I was young. And, my impression of the work was this heady, bit more heavy, a bit more mysterious, a little bit, a little bit, foreign from a Western thought process. So it was intimidating to me. Because I felt like I needed to read all these big, scary books that, I probably, with all this history and all these practices and concepts that were, maybe not something I was going to be able to grasp easily. But one of the things that I do feel like we have learned over time, and I think we invite guests on the podcast that really do bring enough of that foundational understanding of a practice, but really utilize it in a way that it's fun and it's light. It should be fun. It should be light. If it's not fun, don't do it. Truly, don't do it. And because I think, and the same thing with, the co-creation with the universe. I mean, like Holli said, oftentimes I think we miss things because we're looking for something different, and nothing will help build that partnership with the universe and that give and take of co-creation. I mean, everyone wants to be seen and appreciated for what they do in a relationship, right? And I think the universe is the same. So if you're going to keep missing what the universe keeps putting in your path and not acknowledging it, it's going to be harder to build that really strong relationship. It's going to keep coming to you regardless, but it becomes more fun and it becomes more intentional, and really the co-creation is in full force when you're actively looking for it to deliver. So, and have fun with it and celebrate it and talk about it and share it. Because I think it's huge. It's huge in terms of both raising your vibration and acknowledging the growth and evolution.
And I would just add one more thing is dismiss nothing.
Yeah.
And be curious. Be in curiosity. And I think that helps move you down the path much quicker, much faster, much happier as you're going down the path. I see patterns. I love to I always say, guides, give me a billboard, and so I expect a billboard, but I'm really okay with the little signs, little feathers, or whatever else signs I get as I go. And I question them. I'm curious. So what does this mean? What do I need to do? And I acknowledge those things that get me a little closer to my goals. Mm-hmm. And really realize that the fun is really in the journey. It really isn't. Once you get to the destination, there's going to be something else. There's always things to learn, evolve, grow.
Yeah, I love the advice of keeping it fun, because I think that's where we miss the boat sometimes. I think we get so serious and so set on, this is what I want to manifest, that it becomes a burden, like a heavy burden for a lot of people. And that isn't really the point. Anyway, the point of life is, I think, of course it's learning and growth, but to have as much fun as you can while you're doing that. Nobody wants to go through life being miserable all the time, or focusing on the fact that you don't have what it is you think that you want or that you need. So I love the advice of keeping it fun and making it like a game, because anytime you do something like that, if you make it a game, you don't realize, oh yeah, look, all this happened, that happened. And so it does make life a little bit more joyful, which I think everyone needs. Things are so serious right now. We need to have a little bit more fun and joy in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think having people around you that you can share that with. So for example, I'm traveling with Jeanna and I can play with the clown with her, and my other manifestation things that I wanted us to have on the trip. And so I feel like being around people that you can share that with, or they can point out things to you as well that you might have missed, because we're human. We miss signs, we miss things. And so having that sense of friendship, at least with somebody, with your partner, with a friend, with a community, is beautiful.
Yeah, you need to have somebody you can be able to share it with. And I love saying too, being present and realizing, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people miss the signs that, the universe is trying to give to them. Sometimes it comes like a smack you on the forehead, like here it is. But a lot of times it's very subtle, and a lot of people miss it. You know, have clients come to me and say, I don't get any guidance and I don't really know. And I would say, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
have a story of my son. I was making breakfast for him the other morning, and he said, I need to find a manager. And I said, oh yeah, that would be really good. So we just kind of just rolled around in it for a while he was eating. And he goes, the next day, I think it was the next day, it might've been the same day, but it was just really quick. I love it when the universe is quick.
Yeah.
This gentleman shows up just to come for some other reason, for some other musical reason, and said, hey, I'd like to manage you. And so my son's telling me this story, and I went, oh, the universe listened, and they were expeditious this time, you know. And he said to me, he goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. He'd be a terrible manager. That's not a manager. So he wasn't even celebrating the fact that, gee, you're like one step closer. Like I'm celebrating, and he thinks I'm crazy, you know, for celebrating, right? And I'm like, I thought that was a beautiful delivery of the universe, even though it wasn't quite right. So I would say to him, you know, don't get frustrated. Go back to the essence of what do you want that manager to be like? How do you want to feel around that manager? And then send that out to the universe. So I do think there's you get things and then you're like, okay, well, maybe I really don't want that, but thank you. So there's appreciation. There should always be a thank you. But let's pivot and let me get somebody like this, you know? So I think we all do that. I do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just a natural human nature, that if it doesn't show up in the package we wanted it to, or doesn't show up exactly the way we wanted it to feel disappointed. Mm-hmm. And then I think that is another way that we kind of unintentionally block what's coming for us, because, you know, instead of saying, thank you, this is amazing, but, you know, I also need, like you said, like I need a manager who's going to make me feel supported and who's going to get my name out there and will fight for me, you know. Instead of doing that, we just say, well, that wasn't it at all, you know, and get upset. And it's like you were saying earlier, we like to feel appreciated, and I think the universe does too. And that gratitude component is so important. Even like the smallest little things, the gratitude portion makes such a difference, to say, I'm so thankful that you sent somebody, and I would love it if you sent someone that's also, you know, this and matches up with me. So I think the gratitude component is a really, really big thing that a lot of people miss.
I agree. And you think about the energy of gratitude versus the energy of being frustrated that manager didn't come, you know? Yeah. And so I always think in terms of energy, you know, so the energy of frustration isn't really what you're trying to manifest. You're trying to manifest maybe a frequency more like gratitude. Like Jeanna and I, we are in such gratitude for our PR agent that we go crazy over her. I mean, like we just, every day we say how happy we were. And so that's the vibration or the energy level that you put out, you get it back from the universe. I think we get mirrored. So I think you're right. We do get stuck when it's not to say we shouldn't be frustrated sometimes or upset at what's happening in the world, or I truly believe you can't. I mean, I feel like I spent time doing that, you know, I always have to be happy and positive and be grateful, you know, and that we are human beings. We can absolutely have those other feelings, but there's a pivot. We don't wallow in those feelings. And so I agree with you. Gratitude is so very important. The energy of gratitude is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, what you're aligning with, you're calling in. So if you're stuck in that frustration mode, you're just calling in more things to frustrate you, instead of like getting out of that and saying, okay, I'm really happy with everything that's happened so far. And I know things always work out for me. So everything's going to align and work out. And I think when you can be more open like that, I love the openness, because to me, I think small sometimes.
Yeah.
I think on a small scale, and I'm like, it would be cool to have a podcast, maybe have 10 listeners. And the universe is like, why would you just want to think that small? Like, why can't we give you this many listeners? So I always try to be mindful about that too. Like, whatever you want to bring me and whatever is for my highest good, I'm grateful for, because oftentimes the universe will surprise you
Yeah.
in really enormous ways. Like, oh, well, you only asked for this, but I'm bringing you this. And it's a lot more than what you expected. So I love that.
Yeah, I love that. And then there's celebration that goes along with that. And that's really important too. Like how beautiful that is. Celebration and more gratitude. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think you have to celebrate every single little win for yourself, because, we often get stuck in that, well, I'm not where I want to be. Like, I'm looking at the path ahead instead of looking back and saying, look where you were 6 months ago and look how far you've come and what a great job you've done. And you really have to celebrate those things to keep yourself motivated and really just, we all need that pat on the back sometimes, and just say, you're doing a good job, keep going, don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said, Melissa, that, particularly when there are big dreams that we haven't manifested, breaking them down into smaller components like you just articulated, because sometimes it's hard to be in gratitude when you're like, every month I don't have enough money, like how can I be grateful for that? But that's absolutely what we have to do. And so breaking it down into smaller components, like, oh, I'm so happy I have this X amount of money to pay this bill, and write a love note on it, as you're sending it out there, or think a love note. And those are little things that you can do. So I think that's like a big key too, to break it down into smaller components.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, there's a great deal of, study done on just the wiring of the human brain. And, I think we all can see it, whether it's work or home. You ask how people are doing, and most people will go to, well, got this little issue at work, but overall it's okay. People are wired to, human beings can easily tell you what they don't like or what's not working for them. They have a much harder time saying what they do really like and what is working for them. They'll get there if you force them, but the natural tendency is to go towards, more of the negative. And, that's just, it's a conscious, talk about conscious creation. You have to consciously rewire to come at the world the opposite way. And when you do that, like you said, the energy you will get more good if your energy is good and your vibration is high, and you call in the energy you get back is the energy you put out. And so it's part of, and gratitude is a phenomenal exercise to get you thinking about all those things that we naturally, because of how the human brain is wired, will miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just talking to someone yesterday. We were talking about how hard it is sometimes for people, because if you grew up in a household where there was a lot of negativity, and your parents might have always made comments like, oh, here we go again, this always happens to me,
Yep.
It's hard to get out of that way of thinking, because that becomes your natural everyday thought process. But you can do it. It takes consciously practicing that every day. And I've seen it in my own life, because I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I would have just been the most negative sometimes about things that happened. And it took me seeing the evidence that when I stopped those thoughts and I shifted those thoughts, things shifted too in a positive way. But you really have to get into that practice and into the habit of checking your thoughts. What am I thinking, or what am I saying? Because you're really thinking and speaking it into existence without realizing it.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's why conscious creation is so important right there, because not only do we check our thoughts, but let's start the day with a really great thought. Like, how awesome could today be? let me awaken my inner awesomeness.
Melissa. I love it.
How will my inner awesomeness awake today? Yes, exactly.
Honestly, if you started out every day with your podcast title and then check your thoughts, it will shift things amazingly. And I came from a very negative background. Jeanna knows this. So my background was very different than hers. And my parents were probably still grieving. They lost a child before I was born. And so I had grieving negative parents, and that's what I grew up in. And you can change that thought process, but it took me a long time to realize I didn't even know, and then of course, then I started the practices, started seeing things shift, and I'm a completely different person. And Jeanna will say, even when we met 18 years ago, the person she saw back then is very different than the person today. I was still going through that evolution, and I still am. I mean, that's why, that's why we do the podcast. We're always reminded. That's why we do, we want to remind ourselves. We want to remind our community. We want people to be happy and live happier and in more joy. And so this is how we're doing that, but you can absolutely change.
Yeah. And I love that. And just as you said, a lot of people don't even realize how unconsciously those thoughts and this programming is coming out. And so a lot of the work is just paying attention and to the feeling too. Because when people have issues with money and that, like, do you feel dread and a tightness in your chest when it comes to money issues? Because I know that was one thing that I always had an issue with, and that I'm still having to fight that, the dread that comes with anything financial. Like, stop it. It's going to be fine. Like, you're always taken care of. Like, you don't need to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do think your wording is perfect. It's a program. It's almost like a groove in the old fashioned, well, they're back now, records, like there's a groove, right? And, we get that from childhood, but we can work through that. That is absolutely, we can undo that in a variety of ways, but, paying attention to your thoughts are the most important thing.
Well, and I would even say, as you were talking about your friend, I bet he may have always thought that's how everyone else thinks too. And I think, unless people are open and talking, and there must be, as I was hearing you tell the story, I kind of feel like this relief probably came over him that, okay, well, not everybody thinks like this, and I don't have to think like this. I can do some work, and it's not all doom and gloom, and it's not always going to be the worst for me. And I really think if you grew up in that sort of an environment where that was the way you came at the world, human, we talk about the power of the human spirit. I think the human spirit probably knows there should be something else, right? Should be something else. And so just to know that there is something else, and that it just would take, they're not difficult practices. They're really not. But, it takes, good people around you to keep encouraging you and challenging you and supporting you and pointing out areas where you could do better, and doing it in a loving way, like Holli and I have had, and just a real intention to make a shift in your life. Because
and
I grew up in that doesn't mean you have to keep going like that.
Right. And I would point out something too, because I know a lot of people, we have this whole, like, we have to keep up with, everyone on Facebook or whatever. Right. And I would say that when you see things that other people have, instead of that feeling of jealousy and like, why can't I have that, shift that to, I can have that. If this person can have that, I can have that, because the universe is infinite and there's no limit to the amount the universe can supply. It's not like if this person has it, they've taken up all of the, all of the availability for everyone else. It's unlimited. And instead of, when you go to that place of looking at something and saying, why can't I have that? Or why don't I have that? Shifting it to, I can totally have that. That's coming. I'm so happy for that person, because that's going to be great when I also am in that place and those things come to me. Those little kind of shifts that you can do with your thinking really make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I love that. I don't know whether I was listening to your podcast or I was listening to a different one, but I was listening to somebody reiterating that just look to nature. I mean, there's abundance everywhere. The blades of grass, the leaves on the trees, it's just beautiful. And nature and the universe is abundant. Just because you have something doesn't mean I can't have it too. It's limitless. Yeah. And so I think, looking to nature, being a part of really rejoicing in nature and being in gratitude for the abundance of nature helps with the abundance too. And we say all this, and I just, one of the big principles that Jeanna and I believe in, whether you use astrology or human design or getting to know yourself, because I believe that we do show up in this world with certain challenges that over others. So some people show up that are going to have more challenges with relationships. That's because that's how we learn, and some people are going to show up maybe with some money challenges and so the experiences of our childhood just feed into what we need to learn. And so when we understand that, oh, okay, this is something I'm really supposed to learn and embrace, I'm telling you that road from here to joy shortens, because you're like, okay, I can learn these lessons. I can get rid of that groove, that programming. And so there's also this, okay, I'm okay. This is where I'm here to learn. And so I think it makes everybody feel better, to know that it's like, you're not alone. Other people have this too. And so when I look at Jeanna and say, oh, she doesn't have any problems with money, why do I have that? It's sort of in my DNA, and maybe I'm programmed that way, versus Jeanna has other things that I'm not programmed. Right. And then we help one another shorten that distance to joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you're helping each other too, to, say, well, this is what I do. I love that. Just having somebody there that you can bounce ideas off of, and also, help each other, because it really is about learning and growing. And, the way that you can do that the best is to surround yourself with people who have been through things, Absolutely. Know how to help you get through it. So I love that. I love that you have each other.
Yeah. I think that somebody who can lovingly hold the mirror up so you can see how it's showing up. Because sometimes, those challenge areas show up in ways that I wouldn't see, that I wouldn't think that that's how it's expressing itself for me. And Holli will go, ooh, yeah. You might want to I think this might be that underlying challenge that you have around this. I'm like, really? And then, it's so much easier to see it in someone else than to see it in yourself. And so to have somebody who can hold that mirror up, like I said, in a loving way that is always for your highest good, and point those things out for you to take note in and to grow from, it's a gift that I wish we all had in spades. Like I have a habit. So many people don't have that. And so, being intentional and finding some of those in people's lives, I think is really, really important too. And invite them into what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to manifest, and ask them to support in whatever way you need. I think those are all really important tips.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I love your energy together. So if people are out there and they're listening and they're like, I want to hear this podcast, I want to listen in, I want to see what's going on, or I just want to follow you guys because you have such great energy, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is our website at LOAuncorked.com, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, and we'd love to have you come check us out.
It'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. This was such an amazing conversation, and I know it's helpful for people out there listening, because everyone wants to manifest. Everyone wants to see beautiful, good things in their life. And for people who feel like maybe they're stuck in a cycle where they're not seeing that, some of those tips are really and truly helpful. So I'm going to put you on the spot for one last thing before we go. So if there's someone out there who's saying, I'm stuck in this negativity, I'm stuck in this cycle, and I just can't manifest and I can't see positive things in my life, what's the easiest way for them to just start shifting that, seeing a shift?
I'll go and then you go, Jeanna.
Please, please.
You'll get two. I would say as your feet hit the floor in the morning, you think about all the things you're grateful for. I used to make my kids tell me 10 things before they went to bed, but I'd start my day that way. 10 things you're grateful for will shift your space and your mood. What do you say, Jeanna?
Well, and I think I was going to say gratefulness. I mean, it is the way to shift that thinking. I like the morning. We always talk about, finding routines. We don't really want to say practice, because it sounds like, you got to get better at it. And it's not about getting better. It's about, making the space in life to do certain things that are important to your, foundation. And so I would say, on the flip side of the day, a routine of what were the 3 surprises that I was delighted with today. And they could be simple. I mean, we're not saying, a new car showed up in my driveway. I mean, that'd be great too, but it could be just, I got a call from so-and-so today. It was so great to hear their voice. Simple things, but it does start to shift about all the things that really are important for us to be paying attention to, because it's about the journey, as Holly said. It's not about the destination. We're always going to be journeying.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that advice so much. And I love the new mantra you created today. I'm going to awaken my awesomeness. Or how am I going to awaken my awesomeness today?
My inner awesomeness. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for sharing your awesomeness with us today and for being here. I really highly encourage everyone to go and check out your podcast, that LOA Uncorked. And I'm going to have all of the links to your website and to your social media in the show notes. So if anyone wants to go and listen, they can just go and click directly there, so they don't have to worry about trying to do a Google search or anything like that. Thank you guys again so much, Holli and Jeanna, for being with us today and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Melissa.
It was great. We appreciate all you're doing. We love your podcast.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was so much fun. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us today as well. As always, we couldn't do this podcast without the support of all of you. I am so appreciative for each and every one of you. If you like it, please subscribe. Please go leave a positive review from wherever you're listening, or share the podcast with anyone you think might enjoy it. That is like the greatest compliment that you can pay me. And I want to thank you so much for everything that you do each and every day on your podcast too, Holli and Jeanna. I love when people are showing up and sharing what they do, and just, it's like causing a ripple effect of positivity in the universe. And I love that. As always, guys, I hope you have an amazing day from wherever you're listening. I hope it's beautiful, and I am sending you so much love and light, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.